Some of the best dives in the world have one thing in common: current. It brings the action most divers dream about. But without the right preparation, current is also one of the fastest ways a dive can turn dangerous, even for experienced divers. After years of diving and working in places like Komodo, Ampat and the Maldives, current diving is probably the biggest part of Aaron and I's professional experience. So in this video, we're breaking down the 7 biggest mistakes we see divers make in current and what you should do instead. Mistake number 1 is thinking that the current is always bad.
The thought of diving in current makes a lot of divers nervous. This is understandable. Currents can be strong and fast enough to split divers away from their group. And kicking hard through current can send your air consumption and stress rates through the roof.
Sounds terrifying, right? So why is it that for many divers, currents are something to chase, not avoid?
Well, think of them as the lifeblood of the ocean. Where there's current, there's life. Fast-flowing water circulates the nutrients that feed and enrich the reef itself. These nutrients are the base of the entire food chain, attracting massive schools of small fish, hunting pelagics and sharks, as well as filter-feeding giants drawn in by huge volumes of flowing plankton. In short, currents can transform a ghost town reef into an action-packed metropolis in an instant.
You can expect to dive in current in a few different ways, but we'll simplify it down to 2 main types.
Drift dives, where you'll drop at one part of the reef and simply fly along with the current until the end of the dive. And pinnacle dives, where you'll drop in the blue and aim for a pinnacle to hook into and watch the action before unhooking. Sometimes it can be a combination of these depending on the site. In many destinations, trip leaders will time dives specifically for optimal current conditions. This doesn't always mean seeking the strongest possible current. It means getting the right balance between fun and safety. This depends on a range of factors and differs from dive site to dive site.
This is why local knowledge is paramount when it comes to diving in current, which brings us on to mistake number 2, which is not listening to the briefing.
Many people underestimate the importance of a dive briefing when it comes to current. They think it's as simple as follow me and look at the fish. But not paying full attention to the briefing is the first step towards an underwater freakout. A good guide or instructor in a high current destination will know the dive site like the back of their hand. This includes knowing where to drop into the dive site for the best fish action, and which areas of the dive site to expect hazardous current zones. They'll also be able to predict the strength and direction of the current hours or even days in advance, purely based on the tides and their own experience. Honestly, we've met some freakishly accurate dive guides out there, to the point where current becomes a bit of an obsession.
The key thing here is they know what they're talking about.
So, if the guide is going into detail about the current and what to do in certain areas of a dive site, it means you need to pay attention. Once the current check and the briefing are complete, it's time to gear up and go diving.
Which leads us on to mistake number 3, which is not being ready for your entry. One of the most essential skills to master when diving in current is the negative entry.
Your guide is not exaggerating when they tell you that you need to get down fast. With no time to gain composure at the surface before the descent, it's one of the main causes of panic amongst those with less experience in currents. So, whether you're giant striding from a dive boat or back rolling from a Zodiac, you need to be dive ready when the dive leader says go.
It's not for the faint-hearted. So, why do we do it?
Well, when dropping into a site with current, the water is moving fast, especially at the surface. It's important to get underneath this and down to the reef as quickly as possible to avoid missing the dive site. For Pinnacle dives, it can sometimes mean dropping into blue water with no fixed reference point. The drop will often be ahead of the dive site to ensure that you hit the optimal section of the site known as the split. The split is where the current hits a pinnacle or submerged reef, splitting around either side of the reef and creating an action zone for marine life. This is the sweet spot you're aiming for. Getting this wrong can mean you end up getting swept along the side of the reef, resulting in having to kick hard into the current to reach that sweet spot.
Or worse, missing the dive site entirely. So, how do we master the negative entry?
The key here is entering with empty lungs and an empty BCD. Duck beneath the surface, exhale fully and kick downwards whilst equalising to compensate for the fast pressure change. If your BCD has a dump valve on the bottom, use it. You might need to get rid of any remaining air to get down. Another good tip is to go in slightly overweighted, especially if it's your first dive of the trip, to ensure you don't end up bobbing on the surface. And this may sound silly, but make sure your feet are underwater before kicking. Kicking the air won't get you very far, even with fins on. We see this way more often than you'd think. You're going to be tumbling through a cloud of bubbles, so orientate yourself quickly, spot your guide and follow them. Don't forget to check on your buddy on the way down.
If you've managed to do that successfully without bolting to the surface in a frenzy, then you're ready to find out about mistake number 4, which is forgetting your buoyancy skills.
Current magnifies bad buoyancy, and when you're not used to being pushed along by the current, it's easy to let those skills go out the window. Ideally, you need to have mastered buoyancy without current before you can even think about diving in high current environments. Not being fully in control of your buoyancy increases the risk of damaging coral. We've seen this in many places, and no, strong current is not an excuse for smashing up the reef. Currents don't just move the water in a single constant direction. Site topography often means that you'll find yourself being pushed up and down too. So it's important to constantly fine-tune your buoyancy and monitor your depth. Consider taking a speciality course such as Paddy's Drift Diver course to help you really understand how to manage your buoyancy whilst drifting.
This can be frustrating at first, but the main thing we'd suggest here is practice and repetition.
It's the only way to build up the muscle memory to juggle between your BCD, your breathing and body position. Over time, you'll learn to move with the current and maintain a constant depth with natural precision. One of the best ways to learn body positioning is to mimic your guide. It's a common tactic that is usually discussed in the dive briefing. Your guide is ahead of you and constantly adjusting their positioning to compensate for the current in real time. This is your unfair advantage. By watching your guide, you can judge ahead of time how to position your body to work with the current instead of fighting it.
Which brings us on to mistake number 5, which is fighting with the current. Here's where things get serious.
When the current is ripping in a place like Komodo, if you try to fight it, you will lose big time. There may be occasions during a dive where you'll need to swim into a current in order to get to the best interest points and action zones of a dive site. This is where we often see people panic, because they feel like they're in a battle with the current instead of working with it. It's the fastest way to burn through your air and overexert yourself, leading to high stress and increasing your risk of decompression sickness. A common mistake we see is divers swimming too far away from the reef where the current is stronger. This leads to being swept even further away from the reef or faster and ahead of the guide. This is dangerous for several reasons, such as losing orientation and being more exposed to down currents. You will have no reference point and nothing to grab onto if you need to.
So, one of the easiest ways to feel less affected by the current and stay in control is to stay close to the reef.
Keep calm, streamline in trim, and just be hyper aware that you're not damaging the coral. If you feel yourself becoming overexerted, signal to your buddy and your guide and find a spot to pause, catch your breath, and regain composure. This could mean placing a finger on a rock or ducking behind a larger structure for shelter. In certain situations, you may be able to crawl along the rocks. Now, this doesn't mean grabbing all the coral and destroying everything in your path. It means using 1 or 2 fingers placed carefully on a rock to pull yourself along slowly in small increments, whilst being mindful of any camouflaged marine critters like scorpion or stonefish. It's sometimes the most efficient way to move against the strongest currents.
And here is where you may find yourself reaching for one essential tool, which brings us on to mistake number 6, which is not knowing how to use a reef hook.
In many locations, dive guides will hand out reef hooks to divers that don't have their own. The problem with this is that most people are never shown how to use one properly. Many guides even deploy the hook for each guest, but we think you should know how to use one safely and independently. So, here's what you need to know about using a reef hook. Firstly, the name is misleading. They should be renamed rock hooks, as these should obviously never be used to hook onto living coral. Secondly, it's crucial that your reef hook is fast and simple to deploy when you need it the most. You don't want to be fumbling around when the current is really ripping.
So, for a fast and clean deployment, we always prepare ours like this.
Looping the line in this way keeps it neat and compact when not in use. Then when you need it, you can easily unravel it, clip it back onto your BCD and hook on. You want to find a solid, sturdy piece of material like a rock or solid piece of dead coral. Check the surrounding areas too to ensure that you're not likely to damage any coral or yourself in the process. Now, once you're securely hooked on and stable, you need to inflate your BCD a bit to make yourself more positively buoyant. This will stop you from being pushed down on top of the reef. Once you're hooked in, you can relax and enjoy the show.
The next step is to safely unhook. This can be hazardous.
So once you've made sure your group or buddy are also ready, remember that you are positively buoyant. So deflate your BCD slightly before you unhook to avoid a fast and uncontrollable ascent to the surface. Once everyone gives the okay, you'll all need to unhook at the same time, so you're all drifting together with the current. Remember to wrap the line up and pack the reef hook away swiftly to avoid accidentally getting snagged as you're drifting along.
The final drift to your safety stop is where the next set of hazards can arise. Mistake number 7 is not carrying or knowing how to use emergency safety gear.
Getting snagged, separated, or an uncontrolled descent can swiftly turn into an emergency, especially in remote locations where strong currents will rapidly transport you miles away from both your dive group and surface support. Being able to easily signal a vessel or even be GPS located in the worst case scenario should be something every diver is equipped for. That's why carrying appropriate safety gear is a non-negotiable.
Watch this video next to find out which 7 low-cost items could save your life and easily fit in to your carry-on. We'd love to hear about your experiences. What's your biggest fear or lesson from diving in current? Let us know in the comments below. We hope that this has been useful. Give it a thumbs up, hype it, and share it with your dive buddy. It really helps small channels like us, and we really appreciate it. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe for more diving adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you underwater.